Welcome back to MidPoint. Also welcome back Newsmax Vatican correspondent Edward Pentin joins us today. Edward, let's get down to Pope Francis himself. Is there a thinking process that this Pope is just beginning, that he could be the one who really changes the Catholic Church and brings them not only into the 21st century, but changes so much and modernizes so much of their thinking?
That is a possibility. Yeah, I mean, he's been described by many people as a reformer and someone who's really quite radical. And we've seen that developing during his pontificate over the past year and a half. So he's certainly putting things in place. I mean, his priority, it seems to be, is reforming the Roman Curia. So that's going to be the main thing. But he is certainly of a progressive slant, if you like, and he does want to reach out to Catholics and non-Catholics and try and convey the Church's teaching in a way that it hasn't been read before.
Well, but is the Catholic Church and the people, the Catholics themselves, are they ready for this kind of possible radical change?
Well, I think some are and some aren't. And obviously those who are more on the traditional wing of the Church are not comfortable with this because to them it's kind of breaking with tradition. It's trying to couch the Church's teaching in a more favorable language. But the drawback of that is that it can seem to weaken the teaching. And so there is that concern. But the Pope has said, he wants to make a mess, as it were. He wants a debate. He wants to put all this out in the open and see, look, how can the Church really change and modernize and become listened to more in society? And so that's his general approach. Now, those who are opposed to that are worried because it can make it seem as though the Church doesn't really know what it's about.
What are they? Well, that's just it, I guess. That's a point, I guess, that a lot of people would want to know. What are they really worried about? Because there are those people who would say the Catholic Church needs to step into the 21st century, and there are even some people who say that perhaps the Catholic Church one day will move towards unconditional acceptance of gays and so many other people. So what are they really afraid of here?
Well, they're afraid of losing that sense of Church teaching, which has always been very strong on, mortal sins and redemption and forgiveness and all of these things, and the true sense of mercy and justice. They're worried that all these will be watered down and made into something which, in the way that the world thinks, in the way that the world approaches these issues. That's the real concern. But there's this two sides within the Church who are pulling in either direction. So it's going to be very tense and very interesting to see how this plays out in the years ahead. I'm
curious to get your opinion about the minute or so that we have left here, what may be down the road as far as, well, there's even the sacrament of communion to Catholics who have divorced. There's also birth control and so many other things that are involved here. Do you see any earth-shaking changes coming in this Church in the next year or the next few years under this Pope?
I don't think there'll be earth-shaking changes. As they keep saying in the Synod, the doctrine won't change. The doctrine cannot change because it's based on the truth of Christ and what he preached. So that cannot be changed. What can change is the pastoral practice. And there is this great movement to change the practice, which opponents say will make it seem as though teaching has changed. So some people see it as kind of circumnavigating the fact you can't change doctrine by changing the practice. So that is another concern. So what will probably happen out of this will be there'll be no change of Church teaching, but there will be a change of practice. So that'll please both camps, and there'll be a sort of general fudge at the end of this. That's general prediction about what will happen at the end of this synod.
It is going to be, without a doubt, a very tricky slope for the Catholic Church to negotiate here with those who want change and those who don't. You're exactly right, and it's going to be interesting to watch as this Pope navigates through the years. Edward, it's always a pleasure to have you on the show, my friend. Best of luck. Look forward to talking to you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, Edward Pentin, our Newsmax Vatican correspondent. When we come back, a new low when it comes down to campaign advertising. The midterms are almost here, but the hammer has already dropped on one politician in Texas who is already defending what she did. Telling it like it is, my commentary is next, right here on MidPoint.